things.
That's
We got the
it.
things,
There's,
Joe.
there's all kinds of things going on for sure.
Yeah.
So are you ready to hop in? You got any questions?
No, none.
Okay.
And yes, thank you so much
Yeah.
for having
So
me.
yeah, absolutely. No, it's my pleasure. And before we get into your good work, I want to know this. 5 years ago, this pandemic was raging. All of us were figuring it out. So many unknowns. Ultimately, how did you survive the global pandemic, and how has it reverberated into your life today?
Oh, that's a great question. So for the pandemic, the reality is I chilled out. I got really calm. I hung up with my husband. I actually had a good time during the pandemic where like the world was crumbling. And
Yeah.
I realized actually it's so funny you asked that because I was thinking about it this morning in meditation and it was like, oh, that was one of the easiest times of my life because I just went with it. I didn't push. I didn't get mad in, a traditional sense of like, and I didn't try to control. I was like, this is what it is. We're going to make the best of it. And truly, my life flowed. And it was this morning, I just had this ping of like, do you remember when you were stuck in the house and you just said, okay? And it was this like reverberation of, oh, yeah, let's just go back to that.
Yeah.
So it was pre kids. So it's a little different, but I do think the mentality of just like not wanting anyone, I was never mad at anybody. Like,
Right.
I know I lived in Indiana. So at the time, people with masks, people without masks. Like
Yeah.
my job wasn't to judge. My job was just to say, okay, this is happening. I'm gonna accept it and like go with the flow. And so that has truly changed so much of the trajectory of my life. And today I was reminded of how important that was.
Yeah. There was a Saturday Night Live skit that got people really riled up during that time period. And it was one of those like pre-filmed ones where all the cast members were at home and they took the COVID test and it came up and it said it was positive and they were all absolutely ecstatic that they could stay home for a week and a half. So they're
Yeah,
jumping around on their beds and going crazy. And people were like, why are you making fun of it? But it was like there was a part of adulting where people got a break, you know?
yeah,
I mean, I worked the whole time, but I'm talking other people were kind of like, well, I get a week and a half off and that's the way it is. So, I mean, there was a level of that relaxation or just letting your body just kind of, I don't know, stop running so hard. I think that was a part of it.
yeah. I think it was twofold. It was one for me, it's just acceptance. This is what is happening. Like
Yeah.
on a scale you can't even try to control.
Yeah.
And so there was first was the acceptance, and the second was to your point of like, okay, this is what it is. I can't run. I can't push. I can't do all the things. And so I let my nervous system like take a break and it
Yeah.
really worked out in
Yeah.
a very big way. And that's how I ended up in Colorado.
Well, and that has to lend to what you're doing here in 2025. So if I put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds, kids always get the truth out of you. And it's career day, and one of the kids looks up and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
So I tell them I'm a spiritual mentor and a mindfulness facilitator. And then I explain to them, I just help people meditate and quiet their minds. I just help people quiet their minds and be
Yes.
here. Yeah.
So what did you want to be when you were 12 years old? What was your dream life?
Oh, I wanted to be, I still had the 4-year-old mentality where I could be everything.
Uh-huh.
So I wanted to be a marine biologist, of
Okay.
course, and a pop star, even though I couldn't sing, um, and an actress. And yeah, I wanted to be a marine biologist, pop star, actress. Fine.
Those are great. But how did marine biology become the young girl's dream? Like, what do you think? What is the psychology of that? Because I've never heard a dude say they wanted to be a marine biologist. I've heard veterinarian, but I've never heard marine biology. So I wonder what that is about the world of dolphins and manatees and underwater creatures. It's fascinating to me.
I will tell you the thing that came through when you asked that question was I just love dolphins and I wanted to hang out with them.
That's it.
Like it was not how do I it was like this thing and fish. I'm like and I love it was like it just lit me up
Yeah.
and I felt like I could study it and hang out with them and that sounded like the dream.
Yeah. The thing that fascinates me about the ocean is that what do they say that like almost 90% of it we have no idea what's under the ocean.
Hmm.
So how cool is that going to be as technology advances and things get better that we get to see that 90%, just like a whole other side of life? Because there's so many weird, strange things, especially way, way down there.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at how deep we can go
Yeah.
and how weird those fish are.
Yes.
I was just watching Finding Nemo with my daughter.
Yeah.
I have a 4-year-old, an almost 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old, so we're watching Finding Nemo, and that little anklet fish that
Yeah.
comes out, I'm like, that thing's gnarly. What
Yeah.
happens when you go deeper? The
That's it.
unknown is the best place.
We have no idea. It's almost like the spirit world to a certain degree. Like there's these
Uh-huh.
unknowns, but it's out there. It's wild. So let me ask you this. Take me back to your childhood, your Midwest childhood, and how did these foundational seeds of you becoming a mindfulness facilitator, a spiritual teacher, how did those tenets get sown and evolve into who you are today?
So I'll clarify, I was a military brat, so I was a
Okay.
Marine brat,
Okay.
and I didn't grow up in Indianapolis.
Okay.
I went from place to place to place, and the one constant was church. And I grew up Catholic. I always joke I'm a recovering Catholic. No offense, Catholics, but for
Yeah.
me it wasn't the jam. But at the time it really was, and so I would go to church. Um, I would go to church by myself. I would go on Saturdays. I just loved being there. I was a Eucharistic minister. There was just something that was like really beautiful about it. And then I got bullied when I was younger, in 8th grade, and like really bullied. And I could not make sense of a God that loved you and this sort of pain.
Yeah.
And so I left and I did not look back for a very long time. And then I had the pleasure of moving to Washington, D.C. And when you move to D.C., you pick a side. You're Republican or you're Democrat, i.e., you believe in God and you're Christian, or you believe in nothing, or you tell people you're agnostic, right?
Right.
Like you get one of those two. And I went the Democrat route. And so I just kept moving further and further and further away until I started to get back into entrepreneurship, started to get back into wellness was my journey. And when I did that, you can't study entrepreneurship and personal development, which I think women always do the two together, without some undercurrent of spirituality, whether you're like learning about quantum physics or you're learning about manifestation or whatever it is. And as that started to happen, the coaches and the people I was drawn to talked more and more and more about it. And it was like my 8th grade self started to merge with my 28-year-old self.
Yeah.
And I started to realize, my friend Topsy told me, she was like, God's been chasing you. Because I was always like blips. And I finally was like, okay, let's look at this. Like, what is happening? How did I go from this to that? And I've been
Yeah.
unraveling it ever since. So for the past 11 years, I've just been unraveling what happened. Why did it happen?
Yeah.
How does this affect us? Does it matter? Does it not matter? And whenever my mentor, he calls it new spirituality versus old spirituality. And I spent a lot of my time in like new money versus old money. Spent a lot of time in my new spirituality. And as I've unraveled it, moved closer and closer to, this 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 world being a play that we can't quite understand,
Yeah.
but full of love and free will. And I just continue to go deeper and deeper in it, because whether or not you agree with me is irrelevant. My job is to remember and to love you. And I feel like if I feel so great, and I feel so great because I love you and I see you, what's the problem if it's real or not?
Yeah.
I don't need you to agree with me. And so getting to that place of like what is really true for me and reconciling what was with what is how I got here.
It's interesting. When I was young, I had the classic. So I grew up Catholic, but not. We didn't go. But I remember at one point I was outside the skating rink, and one of the kids told me how long hell would be and how painful it would be. And it freaked me out. So I became a born again Christian, and I really, really got into that. And then I hit my 20s, the grunge era, and I completely went the opposite direction. So I had the polarities, but I feel like that's very valid, though, to kind of find that gray area, that middle, because there is logic on both sides of it. And we're seeing that unfortunately play out in America now with, if you're a Democrat or you're a progressive, then you're anti-religion and you're not spiritual. It's such a fallacy. And then all of that has led to this monstrosity that's happening right now in our country, where it's like, no, 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 this is not emblematic of good spirituality or Christianity. It's just not. Like we got to get to like what these deities and these messiahs and these anointed ones from Buddha to Jesus to everybody else in between. What were they trying to talk to us about? We misinterpret it all the time. It's like the sixth grade tale of telling the first kid the ball is blue, and by the time it gets to the end, the serpent is yellow. It's like, how the hell did that happen?
It's so fascinating. I love studying Yogananda, and I love studying Jesus. And Jesus is in so much of Yogananda's teaching. And
Yeah,
so this is what always makes me laugh is like we've gotten so far, but these deities, these mystics, these healers, these gurus, whatever you want to call them, right? Like they all like each other. Like Desmond Tutu, like my one of my favorite books is the Book of Joy, and it's where Desmond Tutu talks with the Buddha, sorry, not with Buddha, with the Dalai Lama,
yeah,
and they just hold hands and laugh,
uh-huh,
and it shouldn't make sense, but when you
right,
read it or listen to it, because they do their accents,
yeah,
when you listen to it, yeah, of course, we're all saying the same things. It's just that like you like jazz and they might like grunge,
yeah,
right? And so it's like we just take in things in different ways. And when you go even further, they're all like, you can do what I do. And that's the part that drives me insane. Is like we all seem to have missed the boat when Jesus was like, you can do what I do. When Yogananda said, you can do what I can do. Like you can do it.
yeah,
But it's the gatekeeping
yeah,
and like the you must choose your adventure and then stick with it. And it's
yeah,
like this whole thing's an adventure.
yeah,
You're allowed to
that's
change
right.
and evolve, and you're supposed to.
Yeah, totally. So let me ask you this. Who's been that inspirational force that's allowed you to find your center, find your purpose and your meaning? Has there been a hero for you?
It's so funny because I'm not Christian, but I
Yeah,
would say Jesus.
yeah,
Like super, super into Jesus. And realizing how human he was and how
yeah,
mystical he was or is
yeah,
still. I would say that, but from like a teacher standpoint, there's just so many because as I grow, what I need grow, like what I who I need to learn from grows. But I am a student of A Course in Miracles, and Jesus is the main teacher there. And I might study, these different philosophies, but I always come back to A Course in Miracles because I feel like for me, growing up Catholic, it I don't want to say it redeems. I would say it helps. It's something that's very familiar and warm, and what I wish I would have learned then.
yeah, yeah. I get it. So let me ask you this. You kind of talked, which is so great. You brought up Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama. If you could meet somebody like that or meet anybody on the planet that you find fascinating that might help you on your journey, ask questions, just see how they operate. Who would you love to hang out with for a little while?
Alive or dead?
We can do ghosts. We can both doors.
Do you know what my answer is? Actually, um, I'm not sure, but my guess is you saw this on the internet like 10, maybe it was like 5 years ago, when they were asking this to little kids, like who would you want to hang out with?
Uh-huh.
And parents, Desmond Tutu, Dalai Lama, and the kids were like, my mom,
Yeah.
my dad.
Uh-huh.
And so when I say that, there's two answers. One, I would love to hang out with like three answers. My mom and dad, without them, without the filter almost that I have of them being my parents. And I could
Yep.
just like, and I think I can to some degree, but just like being able to ask them any questions because they care so much,
Yeah.
right? So they'll turn it back on me, and I'm like, no, I
Uh-huh.
just want your answers.
Yeah.
So I would have like dinner, like a really honest, authentic dinner with them because they're really cool people. And then my kids right now with words. So
Yeah.
my daughter's a speech delay, so I can't really hear like what's going on in her brain, but I would love to. Like,
Yeah.
and my 1 year old, I would love to know what goes through her head when she like is like laughing and banging her head down and then shaking it no. Like, what are you?
Yeah.
What's happening in there? Uh, That's what I would love, truly.
So I got an interesting follow-up to that. My son's on the spectrum, and I didn't know if he was going to talk, and he's 20 now, and he could be a CIA investigator. He asks so many questions. I love it. So it's like it happened. But there's this podcast called the Telepathy Tapes, and Yeah, right? So when you think about that, like we're at that point, we're at that Fantastic Four superhero Avengers movie. It's happening. What happened? How did these chlorides become our brains and how did our synapses build? Man, it's wild. It's wild.
I think one of my favorite books is called I can't remember the name. It's not Becoming Adam. It's maybe it's Birthing Adam. It was by
Yeah.
Martha Beck. Do you know what I'm
Uh-huh.
talking about?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So for those so yeah, that book of like Down syndrome and the kids on the spectrum, I'm like, they know things.
Oh yeah.
I I had dinner with a woman whose son is on the spectrum, and he's very literal, as you know, some can be. And she was listening to telepathy tapes, and she looks at her son and she goes, "Can you read my thoughts?" And he goes, "No." And he goes, "I can hear them."
Oh
Like,
wow. Wow, 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 wow.
and she,
Yeah.
and then he goes, "And I can hear Bruno's too, the dog." And it's like, because she said, "Can you read?" He was like, "Absolutely not." But yeah, I can hear everything you're thinking. What? What is this magic that's happening? You know?
It's like it just screams of the Galapagos Islands, the whole Darwinian notion of where we've come in this modern era. Because we almost think it's like classical music. We had Beethoven, we have Mozart, it's over with, right? The evolution of this art form is going to be recreating the past, but it's not. Everything evolves, everything grows, no matter how much the naked eye can't see the clouds expanding in the sky, they do it all the time. So there's got to be a part of us as human beings with all of this intellect and this advanced stuff that's going on. Like, for instance, with AI, I was asking somebody that was really into it, like, are you afraid? And the best answer I've ever gotten of all the people that have been in that field is AI is a reflection of us as human beings. And I think about these kids that are highly emotionally sensitive. There's a level of us as parents that imbue so much love that maybe it's manifesting these extrasensory perceptions, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's possible. It's totally possible.
Uh, I mean, I think yes, it's totally possible, and I would say it is. It is.
Yeah, it's
These
happening.
kids know things. Like these like not only kids on the spectrum, not adults on the spectrum, kids with Down syndrome, adults with Down syndrome, but like they just know when to hug you.
Yeah, oh yeah.
They just know what to say
Huh?
and how. And how.
A- a-
Because I
And e and even if it's not conventional, like I know with Miles, like there's a lot of times where it's like I'm trying to always teach him social graces and stuff, but there's just times where he goes up and he just takes the veneer down. I know that someone's had a weird day and he's like, "Hey, what's going on? I like your shoes." He always comments on outfits, hair, all that stuff, and it completely takes all their armor down. They become nine again. And when you see that and you see that manifest all the time and those finite ways, there's a miracle of seeing the other side, the upside down world in Stranger Things that is just there and it's miraculous, you know?
the Course of Miracles says that a miracle is a shift in perspective. That's what it's a shift into love.
Yep.
And these miracles, they happen all the time,
Yep.
right? Like when you can disarm someone, really you're just saying, "Hey, I see you. I love you."
Uh-huh.
And your son does it so well because he doesn't know any other way.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
When people are like, you know, the evolution, I'm like, these neurodivergent folks are here to show us that there's another way.
Yeah.
They speak truth when we find it so hard.
Yeah.
And we love them for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we think that we're going to be burned at the stake. And yet we honor, we love, we hold dear
Hmm.
who they are. And I feel like if we could just turn that love back on ourselves,
Yep.
it would look so different out here.
They teach us so much. They do. And he's definitely my hero. I mean, of all the things. And they have to try so much harder in that conventional sense to fit in with the world. And then they have all of these other kind of preternatural notions that feed into their kind of brilliance that,
Yeah.
the world terms disability or special needs, but it's really just another flowering of how the brain can grow and adapt to this reality.
Yeah. There's this idea of what's normal and what's supposed to work. It's so silly,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
It took me so long to figure that out, but here we are
Yep.
realizing that like I can do whatever I want.
Yep.
I mean, maybe I can't play in the NBA, right? Like for
Right.
sure. But like for the most part, we can show up how we want to. We can say what we want to.
Hmm.
And if we really like dive into doing it through love, we recognize that it's you never really want to be mean. You
Right.
never really want to be a jerk. Like freedom isn't running around doing whatever you want, right?
Right.
Like freedom is moving in a way that serves both you and me because when we realize that you and me are the same, we only want to do what's of the highest, which is why like spirituality, like, I used to give it a bad rap, but I'm like, I don't really care what you believe, like as long as you walk your talk.
Yep.
Like if you're going to read the Bible, effing read the Bible and walk the Bible.
That's it.
Um that's it. Like cuz I know Christians who, you know, and then we know Christians who would give you the shirt off their back and believe in their bones that you are good
Yep.
and they are too. And it's like it's 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 a spectrum of spirituality too, right? There are people who but my mentor is a guy named Mitch. He studied in ashram for 7 years. He studied as teachers for 11. He knows the um, Eastern philosophies extremely well, but he giggles and laughs and used to work at the Kennedy Space Center, right? And so he's this like marvelous, amazing person who just loves so heavily. And then there's people in my world who like tell you if you don't put period butt on your face and like run around hooting and hollering in white, you suck. And it's like
Yeah.
you're not walking your talk either.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
so it's
No, I
just
get it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's wild. So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight ran into the 18-year-old version of you, you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the wisdom you've accumulated over these years. What advice would you impart?
Do what feels good. That I my dad was the biggest supporter of the arts. I played the saxophone. I wanted to be in the jazz band.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I
Yeah.
love Jazz Fest, like New Orleans Jazz
Oh,
Fest. I
yeah.
went before the pandemic hit. I was like there every 3 years in a row. And I plan on going back next year. Like
Yeah.
I almost wore my jazz shirt to this interview. Like
Yeah.
I loved playing music and doing those things. And I loved art. I was a good artist. And I was like, oh, well, you can't do that. And
Yeah.
he never put that on me.
Sure.
It's something else I care. I mean, I also have an Asian mother, so you, you do what you want with that information.
Yeah.
Um, but I wish I would have just followed what lit me up.
Yeah.
I wish I would have. I traveled when I was younger, but I wish I would have just traveled. I wish I would have known like this life is about experiences and you
Yeah.
follow what lights you up, not because it's necessarily the thing that will make you money, but because lighting up is a good thing.
It is. It certainly
Um,
is.
and
Yeah.
I wish I would have known that at 18. I'm finding it out again in my late 30s,
Yeah.
and I'm doing it now, and I'm happy to be making up. But that's, you know,
I dig it. I totally
yeah.
do. So, of everything that you've done, accomplished, evolved into, and become, what are you the proudest of?
I'm gonna do the cliche, but I don't think it's a cliche. I love being a mom.
Yeah.
I was thinking this yesterday. It's my favorite identity.
Yeah.
Like on this path, you're supposed to shed these identities. You're supposed to, be one. And I'm with you, but we're having a human experience, and we're, as much as we're a spirit at the same time. And I remember sitting yesterday. I was like, my favorite hat is mom.
Yeah.
I and I am the mom. I love my mom is great. I want to be really clear, but like I'm the mom that like my little one needed.
Yeah.
Um, and I really let my kids be my kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're a parent. That is not easy.
Yeah. I know. I know.
So I'm really proud that instead of being like, for the love of God, get in the press, do the thing, I'm like, all right, finish out the season,
Yeah.
finish out the project, and then you can stop.
Yeah.
Like, it's for sure being a parent.
I get it totally. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm just laughing because I've been told I've been stubborn like multiple times this week. Um, they ain't wrong. So I would say my I really believe I'm kind. I believe I'm creative. I believe I'm stubborn. I believe that, but in a good way. And I think I'm truthful.
Yeah. Are you hopeful with everything that's happening in the world and having a spiritual sense? Are you hopeful with where we're at and where we're going as human beings?
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
here's the thing. 1,000 years ago, we were killing each other with like muskets.
Yeah.
Not even muskets, like swords and things
Yeah.
like that. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
we have come a long way. And I know everyone's like, the sky is falling. We've only evolved to be kinder. We've only evolved to take care of, like, to be able to not maybe not take care of each other more, but like to be able to take care of each other more. I do think we're moving in a direction that is loving. I will say, I think this period of time is really challenging
Yeah.
because I think a lot of us are at a crossroads, myself included. Like, who am I?
Yeah.
What do I believe? And so we're here
Yeah.
because this period is forcing us to really answer that question. So yeah, I don't listen. it- I I'm not fully non-dualistic. I can't wait to be there.
Yeah.
I know I can get there,
Yeah.
but I do know that there's not really any good or bad, right? It is, and when we accept, we say, okay, this is what's happening, and I can create a new experience. And I understand my privilege in saying that and all the things that go with it, and I stand by it. Um, so yeah, I think we're doing fine.
Yeah.
I would just make the argument we have the opportunity, all of us, to fine tune what we want instead of saying, oh, this world's happening to me.
Yeah.
Like, it's not.
True. Totally true. And these kids, like we mentioned before, the neurodivergence, and they teach us there's a way of like washing all of that away and getting rid of the noise and feeling it for what it is, you know, on a visceral level, so to speak,
Yeah,
you
there are
know.
teachers. There are
Yeah.
teachers for sure.
So if anyone wants to reach out, speaking of teaching, and they want to hire you, they need help, they have questions, any of the good work, where do they go?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. One, I'll offer up a free meditation and journal prompts that I can share the link with you
Okay.
for. The reason I say that is because my big thing with working with me is my job is to help you tap into your inner guidance. I really believe that everything that you need to know is in you.
Yeah.
And my job and any spiritual teacher's job is to bring it out further. And so I always offer that out to people if they're interested, because you can find that information. And when you realize you can do that, life gets easier and you can go and work with guides that will allow you to do that. And then otherwise, ericaballard.co, not COMCO. I'm on Instagram at Erica Ballard underscore and at TikTok at Erica Ballard underscore.
Excellent. I'll put those in the show notes. Erica, what a delight. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time and wisdom. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Best of luck.
Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.